The first signs of summer came early to Maple Ridge, a quiet American town surrounded by tall pine trees, wide open skies, and winding roads that always seemed to lead you somewhere peaceful. For most people in town, summer meant lake trips, family picnics, and evenings spent outdoors. But for Clara and Emily, it meant something entirely different, something neither of them expected, something they never planned for, and something they tried hard not to think about. It all began the day Daniel Hayes returned. Clara and Emily were 24, fresh out of college and trying to figure out their careers and lives. Clara worked part-time at a community center and spent her afternoons sketching ideas for children's books. Emily worked at a small marketing office, but she dreamed of starting her own design studio. Both were hopeful, curious, and excited for their futures. But they were also tired of short-lived relationships, of disappointments, of people who didn't understand them. Then Daniel walked back into Maple Ridge. Like a storm they didn't see coming, he had left town years ago. During his marriage, and almost everyone expected he would never return. But after a quiet and painful divorce, he came back, hoping to rebuild his life near the people he trusted. He was in his early 40s, old enough to be their father, as Clara liked to joke, but young enough to still carry a calm, steady confidence that made people feel safe around him. He had gentle eyes, a level voice, and a tiredness that hinted he had lived through things he didn't talk about. When Clara and Emily visited him with a small welcome basket, they expected a short hello, maybe a polite thank you. Instead, they found themselves staying far longer than planned, talking about work, travel, books, music, right? And everything in between. Daniel listened with genuine interest, which was rare. He spoke with warmth, but always with a quiet sadness beneath it, like someone who wanted to believe in good things again, but wasn't sure he could. Clara felt something shift that very first afternoon. She didn't show it, but she noticed. The way Daniel leaned forward when she spoke, how he smiled softly when she laughed, how he asked questions that made her feel seen, not just heard. Emily noticed something else entirely. She saw the loneliness Daniel tried so hard to hide. The way he paused before answering personal questions, as if stepping carefully around memories that still hurt. She felt drawn to that fragile part of him, the part that seemed to need kindness more than anything. Both tried to ignore what they felt because it made no sense at all. He was older, wiser, and had lived through things they couldn't imagine. They were young, uncertain, still figuring themselves out. And most importantly, Daniel was practically family. He had known their parents, attended their childhood birthdays, and once helped fix Emily's bike when she was 12. None of this should have been complicated, but feelings don't wait for permission. And they don't follow logic. They grow quietly, moment by moment. A shared laugh, a thoughtful gesture, a long conversation that lingers in the mind, a look that lasts 1 second too long. It all added up. The three of them began spending time together naturally. Evening walks, coffee at Clara's favorite shop, helping Daniel paint his porch, watching movies on Friday nights. It felt innocent, comfortable, and healing. But beneath the surface, a tension began to form, soft at first, then unmistakable. Clara noticed how Daniel's eyes softened when she talked about her art, as if he believed in her dreams even more than she did. She liked how he explained things slowly, how he never dismissed her ideas, how he treated her as someone capable and talented. She found herself thinking about him more often than she wanted to admit. Emily felt something different. She admired how responsible he was, how he never pretended to be perfect. His honesty made her trust him quickly. She liked the way he listened, not out of politeness, but because he genuinely cared. She liked how warm the room felt when he smiled, a rare smile that always carried a hint of gratefulness. Daniel, meanwhile, tried his best not to feel anything at all. He told himself it was impossible. He told himself he was too old, too tired, too broken. And he told himself that whatever spark existed, if it existed, was only because he had been lonely for too long. He thought maybe he was imagining everything, but he wasn't. The truth was simple. Clara and Emily brought color back into his life at a time when everything felt gray. They made him laugh again. They made him feel like himself again. They made him believe that maybe life could still surprise him. One warm evening, the three of them sat on his porch, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and gold. Birds were settling down for the night. The world felt still and quiet, almost too quiet. Daniel exhaled softly and said, "You two remind me what hope looks like. I didn't realize how much I needed that." He meant it in a simple, genuine way. But the words sank deep into Clara's and Emily's hearts. The moment felt like a small confession, something he hadn't planned to say, something that slipped out because it was true. Clara's breath caught. Emily looked away, trying to hide the emotion in her eyes. Something had shifted again. No one spoke for a long time. Wind rustled the trees and the smell of pine drifted through the air. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged, delicate. Fragile. Then came the night that changed everything. A sudden summer storm rolled across Maple Ridge, bringing heavy rain and distant thunder. Clara and Emily had been helping Daniel organize old boxes. And by the time the rain started, it was too late for them to walk home. The sky grew dark and the windows shimmered with raindrops. Daniel made hot tea, and the three sat in his living room with blankets around their shoulders. As the storm grew louder, the room felt strangely intimate, not romantic. Not flirtatious, just warm, safe, and close. They talked about their fears, their regrets, their hopes for the future. The conversation grew deeper than any they'd had before. Then lightning flashed and thunder followed a second later. Emily flinched slightly. She didn't like storms. Without thinking, she reached for Daniel's hand, just for comfort. Daniel froze, Clara froze, Emily froze. But Daniel didn't pull away. His hand stayed in hers, warm and steady. It was innocent, a simple gesture of comfort. But the feeling behind it wasn't simple at all. Clara watched their hands, and something inside her twisted. Not jealousy, exactly, something softer, sadder, more complicated. It wasn't that she wanted to be in Emily's place. She just realized at that moment how deeply she cared. More deeply than she had allowed herself to believe. She stood up, unsure if she should leave or speak or pretend she felt nothing. Her heart raced and her breath felt uneven. Daniel's voice broke the silence. "Clara." "Wait," he said her name gently, but the tremble in his voice revealed everything he tried to hide. His feelings, his confusion, his fear of hurting either of them, his fear of wanting something he shouldn't. Clara turned around. Eyes shining. Emily slowly let go of Daniel's hand. And for the first time, all three of them understood that their connection, whatever it was, could no longer be ignored or dismissed. It wasn't just a passing feeling. It wasn't an innocent friendship anymore. Something real had taken root. The storm outside rumbled in the distance, but the storm building inside the room was strong, emotional, tender, and impossible to avoid. The night didn't end with answers. There were no confessions, no decisions, no clear path forward. Only a quiet, heavy awareness that everything had changed. They didn't know what would happen next, but they knew that nothing would ever be simple again. The morning after the storm felt impossibly bright, as if the world was trying to remind Clara and Emily that life went on, even when hearts were tangled and uncertain. The air smelled fresh from the rain, carrying hints of pine and earth. But the brightness outside only made the weight inside them heavier. The previous night had left something unsaid, a tension lingering that none of them could ignore. The memory of Emily holding Daniel's hand replayed over and over in Clara's mind. And she realized she couldn't pretend the feelings she had weren't real. At the same time, Emily felt a strange mix of fear and longing. She wanted to protect the bond between herself and Clara, but she couldn't erase the connection she felt with Daniel. Clara suggested they walk to the local cafe just to get some air and distract themselves from the thoughts that refused to leave. Emily agreed silently. and the two women stepped outside into the gentle morning sun. It felt ordinary: coffee, pastries, chatter from neighbors, but ordinary was impossible after last night. Clara broke the silence first, her voice quiet but firm. "Do you think he regrets it?" she asked, and the question hung in the air like a delicate thread. Emily shook her head, though uncertainty showed in her eyes. "No," she said, "I think he's just scared. Scared of what it means, scared of hurting us, maybe scared of himself." Clara nodded slowly, realizing Emily was right. Daniel wasn't careless. He was thoughtful, careful, protective even. He wouldn't let himself act impulsively if it meant someone could get hurt. That was the core of who he was. But even with all the caution in the world, feelings weren't something anyone could control. They had crept into all their hearts, quietly but firmly, like a river cutting through stone. Daniel, meanwhile, spent the morning alone in his living room, trying to make sense of what had happened. He had felt the touch of Emily's hand, and the awareness of Clara's gaze had burned into him like fire. He was aware of the pull between them, a pull that was natural and human, yet complicated. He told himself repeatedly that he could not act on it, that he had responsibilities to himself, to them, to the history they shared. But every time he tried to convince himself, the memory of their laughter, their vulnerability, their energy tugged at his heart. By midday, the tension could no longer be contained. Clara decided she had to confront it, not to act on it impulsively, but to understand it and regain some sense of clarity. She walked back to Daniel's house, feeling her stomach twist with nerves and anticipation. Emily had asked for some space, needing time to process the events of last night, and Clara respected that. She rang the doorbell, and Daniel opened it with a cautious smile. Relief washed over him immediately, as if the universe had sent her to answer the questions that had no voice. "We need to talk," Clara said softly. Her tone carried a mixture of urgency and gentleness. They walked to the porch where they had spent countless evenings before, and Clara sat down, wrapping her arms around herself. She looked at him, really looked, and saw both the vulnerability and the strength in his eyes. "Daniel, you mattered to us," she began. "But we can't pretend this is nothing, and we can't hurt each other. Emily and I, we've always promised to be honest, no matter what." Daniel's eyes fell to his hands. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he said quietly. "I didn't expect to feel anything for either of you. I thought my heart was finished. That part of me was over. I didn't think I could care again." His voice was raw, sincere, and Clara felt a pang of empathy that nearly brought her to tears. "But it's not," Clara said softly. "And that scares you, doesn't it?" He nodded, admitting what he had tried so hard to hide. The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was a silence filled with understanding, with recognition that some things couldn't be solved in words alone. Then Emily appeared, arriving quietly, her face calm but serious. She had taken her space as Clara had hoped, and now she returned ready to face the truth. She sat beside Clara, letting the distance between them shrink, though the emotional tension remained thick. "We can't walk away from this," she said softly, but firmly. "It's real. It's dangerous. Yes, but it's here. And we have to choose what's right for all of us." Daniel looked at them both, his heart aching with the knowledge of the impossible situation. He cared for them deeply, more than he had expected, more than he believed he had the right to care. But he also understood that he couldn't let his feelings jeopardize the friendship and bond between the two women. His voice was low but steady when he finally spoke. "I care about you both. Care more than I should, probably more than I'm supposed to. But I will not be the reason your friendship breaks. You two are too important." Clara's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Emily wiped one from her cheek. They understood. Daniel's honesty, his refusal to act recklessly, made their feelings for him complicated but also pure. The three of them had a connection, one that was deep, emotional, and human, but acting on it would risk more than anyone was willing to lose. Weeks passed, and the tension slowly transformed into something gentler. Daniel became more than a friend again, but in a way that felt steady and dependable. Clara and Emily focused on their own lives while keeping him close, sharing moments of laughter, advice, and quiet evenings. The longing that once burned brightly became a soft warmth, a reminder of what human connection could feel like without crossing boundaries. Daniel found himself looking forward to their visits, to their conversations, to the way they made ordinary moments extraordinary. He wasn't in love with them in the conventional sense anymore. Instead, he was grateful. Grateful for their presence, their honesty, and the way they reminded him that life could still be meaningful after loss. The bond they shared, complicated as it was, became a source of healing. Clara and Emily, too, discovered new strengths. They had faced feelings they weren't ready to act on and had chosen honesty over desire. That choice, painful as it was, reinforced the trust between them. They realized that love could take many forms, not just romantic, not just physical, but emotional and supportive. A love that healed and sustained. They laughed more, trusted each other more, and understood that some connections didn't need labels to matter deeply. Over time, the trio's interactions became natural again, marked by warmth and mutual respect. Daniel helped them see the beauty in patience and understanding. Clara and Emily helped him see the value of hope and emotional vulnerability. Together, they created a space where feelings could exist without fear of judgment, without recklessness, without regret. And though the romantic tension never fully disappeared, it transformed into something sustainable. They all learned that not every attraction had to lead to romance to be meaningful. Sometimes, love's greatest gift was simply presence, care, and honesty. Daniel continued to be a mentor, a friend, and a source of calm in the storm of their young lives. Clara and Emily continued to explore their dreams, strengthened by the knowledge that human connections could be complicated, honest, and profoundly moving. By the end of that summer, they were changed. The stormy night that had sparked so much uncertainty had passed, but its lessons lingered. They had confronted feelings they could not act on, faced desires they could not indulge, and chosen respect, friendship, and emotional integrity. Daniel smiled more often, lighter now, lighter than he had in years. Clara pursued her art with renewed confidence, knowing that emotional honesty mattered as much as talent. Emily started working on her design projects, inspired by the balance and clarity that came from accepting life's complexities. In the end, story wasn't about forbidden love or heartbreak. It was about understanding, about maturity, about the courage to face impossible emotions with honesty and grace. Daniel, Clara, and Emily had learned that the heart could hold many things at once: admiration, attraction, longing, and caring. That sometimes the bravest act was to love without consuming, to desire without crossing boundaries, to feel without possession. Their bond remained unbroken, a quiet testament to the power of emotional connection, and a reminder that some relationships are meaningful, not because they fit the traditional mold of romance, but because they heal, support, and transform. Daniel had reminded them of hope. Clara and Emily had reminded him of trust. Together, they had navigated a summer of emotions that could have been dangerous. Yet they emerged stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the kind of love that lasts. Not necessarily the kind that burns, but the kind that nurtures. Sometimes the heart needs to wander through impossible feelings to understand the ones that truly matter. And for Daniel, Clara, and Emily, the summer of Maple Ridge would always be remembered as a season of connection, clarity, and growth. Summer where love was complicated, beautiful, and ultimately safe, respectful, and unforgettable.